Baiklah, ucap syukur padamu ya Tuhan atas berkat dan tuntunanmu dalam kehidupan kami sampai kami. Kiranya Engkau memimpin agar dapat berjalan dengan baik dan benar ini juga mendengarkan. Inilah doa dan permohonan kami ya Bapa, sempurnakan
Oke, terima kasih untuk Saudari Tirsa yang sudah boleh membuka kegiatan kita pada malam hari ini doa. Dan saat ini kita akan mengikuti ucapan selamat datang sekaligus sambutan pembuka yang akan dibawakan oleh Kak Uriah Rumbai.
Baik, selamat malam diucapkan bagi teman-teman yang sudah hadir pada saat ini, pada malam ini, pada webinar kita pada saat ini yang berjudul Adventist Branding and Design. Kami mengucapkan selamat datang khususnya bagi narasumber kami, Kak Anthony Stanyer bersama dengan Pendeta Rian Saronsong, dan juga bagi teman-teman yang sudah bergabung dengan kami, IAUC, EYNN, baik yang bergabung di Zoom, Facebook, maupun di YouTube. Sekali lagi kami ucapkan selamat datang, selamat bergabung, mengikuti webinar ini. Tuhan memberkati.
Terima kasih pada Kak Uria, dan kita akan mengikuti lagu pujian yang akan dibawakan oleh Master Guide Unique Conference Indonesia Kawasan Timur. Terima kasih untuk lagu pujian yang sudah boleh kita dengarkan bersama. Dan pada saat ini kita akan mengikuti perkenalan narasumber kita pada malam hari ini yang akan dipandu oleh Kak Wina Hidupan.
Shalom, selamat malam untuk kita semua. Good evening, our brother Tony Stanyer. Oke, perkenalan pembicara kita pada malam hari ini. Pembicara kita adalah memang orang yang sangat ahli di bidangnya, di bidang desain and branding. Dan saya akan memperkenalkan secara singkat pembicara kita. Pembicara kita just call Tony for short, but Anthony Stanyer is his full name. Currently work for the SSD as a youth ministry specialist and digital media specialist and focus on young adults or senior youth leader, youth urban mission training or 1 year in mission, and other youth-led event. Married with 2 kids, living in Silang Kafit, loving biking and hobbies on video and photography. Let's prepare ourselves and get ready to welcome our special speaker, Mr. Anthony Stanyer, or Kuya Tony, with his powerful presentation for us. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you for having me with you. It's a blessing to be part of your planning for your newscasting. Is someone going to translate, Wina, or what? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Pastor Ian will be the interpreter.
Okay, so you're on a different line. Okay, sige. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much for having me again. I think that what I'm going to share with you this evening is very important. Not important in the terms of, say, as our message as the Adventist Church, we talk about the 3 angels message. That's important information that we need to tell the world. What I mean by important in this scenario is that this is how the world will see you. It's one thing to say that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist or I'm an Adventist youth. But what does that mean? What does that look like on, say, a video or through a podcast or through your Facebook? People will identify your branding as how they see you. And we need to develop that. That's very important that we learn to develop the right mindset of how we will create the image that we want people to see. Of course, it's no secret. The Adventist Church, we have an image, which is Jesus Christ. We want to be reflecting of Jesus Christ. I just wanted to ask, Wina, do you see my presentation backwards, or can you read it correctly?
It fixed, bro. It fixed.
Oh, nice, bro. I love you, bro. Okay. Branding in this case, in this scenario, is we want to present ourselves in the image of Jesus Christ. So whenever time that someone sees you, hopefully they see your creator. They see the person that you worship. And that's why it's so important for us to understand the branding that we have, especially with how you are, you have a special opportunity right now to share the news the news of what's happening in EIUC or within your different conferences, it's good that when the public sees that, it's not just what I call noise. It's not just noise, but it's something that's important. And so the way that we create our designs, the way that we write or type out our captions or type in our posts, we need to do it in such a way that it connects to the branding of the Adventist Church. That as a society or as a church culture, we want to prepare the world for Christ's second coming. And we do that by sharing hope, sharing love. So how does that look like? And that's what I want to talk about this evening. Some of these principles is what I want to talk about. So to start things off, we want to move straight over into asking the real question. Why care about design and branding? What's the importance about it? And I think I kind of touched on that a few seconds ago by pointing out that what we design, what we create, videos, music, pictures, whatever it may be, whether individually, like all by myself, or as a community, as an institution, for your church, for your school, for your conference, for your union, that will always reflect what we believe in. And so we have to be very careful with that. See here if I can. Oops, too far. There. What we want to do right now is look at good branding. That's what we want to do. When we have this good branding, it gives a perception and for people to care. Because if we don't have something that's nice, people don't care about it. Pretty sure if you go to the store and you want to buy something, and it might be the chocolate, you would maybe choose the candy or the chocolate that has the better branding, the better colors, the better font. That's what good branding can do. And when we do our branding correctly, and people will see clearly our vision and mission as Seventh-day Adventists or as Adventist youth. Good design is one of the primary ways that people get to understand who we are. If we don't have a clean and modest design, like really noisy and a lot of graphics and many logos, people get confused and they don't really understand what we're trying to say. And we want to make our message very clear. Even if it's a midweek program or an evangelism program or discipleship program, we want people to be visually engaged with the design that we're sharing to the world, and that's very important. But see, there's a contrast to this. There's a contrast that you need to understand with this, is that one is good design, which I just shared to you, but the fear that we would have is what happens when we have a bad design or a bad brand. And the thing is, when we don't brand correctly, we don't do our diligence. I hope that word can be translated, diligence, of providing good quality art or good font, we can send the wrong message. It could be a distraction. Instead of that image being an inspiration, it becomes a distraction. People don't really want to look at it. And when people see it and they're not interested in it, that means you're not hitting your target audience. And people don't understand what you're trying to say. Maybe you have been in that scenario where maybe you posted something and it only got one share or one like. That's an indicator in the world of social media, is that people don't relate to what you're trying to say, or it's not relative to this time. It's not what they need right now in June 2021. There are these, there needs to be something practical to it. Other than that, it's bad design, and you have to rethink. And for people who are doing business, if you're an entrepreneur or you're creating a new concept of maybe branding for your youth ministry or something, you have to rethink that and say, what do I need to do? What is my audience interested in? And that's how you can come up with a good design. Another aspect of a poor design is that too much information. There's like maybe a whole bunch of words, maybe a very long Zoom link, and then other information, and then maybe 3 or 4 different pictures. It's just information overload, and that's one of the reasons that maybe people aren't interested, is because there's no focal point. There's nowhere for me to look and see what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to say. They can't understand it because there's just so much information out there. As I was saying there, information overload, irritation or confusion. What does that mean? Can you be irritated when you see a certain graphic or a certain video or a certain logo? Yes. People can become irritated because maybe they don't like the color, or the color doesn't resonate with them, or it doesn't fit with them. When we design things here in SSD, we have to be careful with colors, because in different countries, different colors are interpreted and have different meanings. So it's very important that we take a moment to kind of figure out what would be the proper colors for a certain country, and we try to blend it all. So we don't want people to be irritated by what they see, or even confused by what they see. And the last item I have there is superfluous. It's just information to make yourself look good. Sometimes we like to boast about certain things. Maybe in a world view, in a wider context, if you're trying to reach out to your community, they may not understand what MG means, or what SYL can mean, or what OIM can mean. So we have to be careful in how we share that information with the world, because maybe it's just about us. It's not really information for the world to see, that they don't benefit from it. So we have to be careful in making good designs. A great design, if you're thinking about doing like a layout or a video or something like that, we need to have a clear and directive message. When you think about maybe promoting your midweek or your week of prayer or your voice of youth or any type of news, how are you going to present that in a way that is clear? What colors are you going to be using? What fonts? How many words on your page? Or if you're making a video, how many graphics are flying in and out of your design? That's very important to people. And so we need to be clear on that. You have to have a clear message. Brings joy. When we create a good design or a great design, it needs to give some type of happiness. If there is no happiness there, they will just swipe. It doesn't become important. And it goes against what we're trying to do. We're trying to share information, but because it doesn't bring joy to people, maybe that's a sign that we have to rethink what we're trying to share or how we're trying to share. The third one is to compel. This is one of the challenges that I face, is how to create a design that compels a person to agree, to like it, or to share it, or to comment, or how to create a video that compels people to make action, to make a change in their life. Maybe you want to promote, evangelism, or you want to promote discipleship or a prayer ministry. But how can we do that in a way that compels? So great design will empower people to follow or to engage, or to do something with that information. And that's what's important. One of the thing that's in my mind for a very long time, I think I was reading a magazine about 7 years ago or something like that. And Saul Bass had an article there. And this is what he said, and it really changed the way that I think. It's changed the way that I think. It says, design is thinking made visual. Design is thinking made visual. So if you take that, everything that I said earlier, and say that you have a very, very colorful design or video or poster with a lot of words there, it can seem very confusing. So you would ask yourself, or I would ask myself, if I'm looking at that and it's very confusing, then it gives an idea what's in that person's mind. So we have to have a clear mind when we go and design something. It just can't be something that is, we have to give all the information right now. We have to post everything that's important goes on one document, or within 30 seconds of the video, we have to put all the information there. What happens is it's not clear. And it's also understood that the person's thinking is not clear. They don't understand the vision. They don't understand the mission that they're trying to share through that information. Another one that I have here is, you will never have a second chance to make a first impression. Have you heard that phrase before? You will never have a second chance to make a first impression. We have to be careful in what we design and how we design things. Because if someone, whether they're Adventist or not Adventist, if they see what you're producing and it's not well done, it's not done well, it's very confusing, there is no direction with it, you may lose your chance to make an impression on that person. Whether if it's, trying to make a difference in terms of inspiration, like you have an inspirational quote, but if your design is not that well done, the font, maybe there's a misspelling in it, or it goes against the culture, like you offended someone in your culture because of what was said, that could give a very bad impression. There was an example a couple years ago. There was a youth group here in our division, and they were always promoting their AY. So they promoted their AY every single week. And of course, I see that they're always promoting because I like their page. And we were having a conversation during that time. And I said, you need to find a way to impact your community. Your AY, one of the best strategies for senior youth leadership is to impact the community. And so they asked me, so what are those things? I said, well, how do we as Adventists care for the environment? How do we care for our neighbors? What are we doing? What training are we providing? Well, sad to say, a couple of weeks later, they took what I said and started to look for, all of the do's and don'ts of the Adventist church. Things such as food, types of drinks, clothing, and started focusing on those things, thinking that that's what the public wanted to hear. And after a couple days, a couple Sabbaths, it even got, for me, in my opinion, it really got worse, because they started to post posters about their topic for the coming Sabbath. And it was about the gay community. And, it's an LGBTQ on the top, and the colors and all those things. And you could tell that it was a church that, did not agree with the LGBTQ community and was very public about it. And I asked them, I go, what happens if you have someone who may be gay and is thinking about coming back to church, and then they saw that? You would have lost their impression and maybe never come back to church again. So we have to be careful with what we design, because we may never have a second chance to reach out to those people. Another thought that I want you to have and not forget during this conversation that we have is that excellence is not a skill. It is an attitude. Okay? Excellence is not a skill. It's an attitude. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, you might be saying, hey, Kuya Tony, or I don't know if Kuya Vian is, I heard his voice earlier. Hey, you have so much talent, or Kuya Jimmy, you have all this talent. I can't do what you do. Or you may be finding other people in the church who's really good at design or videos, and you feel not competent, or you don't have the skills to do it. I want to tell you that you're wrong. Excellence is not a skill. Doing great design, it's about practice. So what I'm sharing to you this evening and what you can learn on your own, it's about practice. If you want to learn how to design better, go and watch more things about design. There's a lot of information on YouTube. It's free. It's free. And you can learn a lot, whether it's Photoshop, Premiere, GIMP, Inkspace, all these other applications. There are other free applications out there, but you just have to have discipline. You just have to practice. It's the attitude that you bring. And so if you're thinking about how you can become a better designer or a better brand maker, you have to practice. Meaning every other day or every day, find a few moments to practice, to watch, to learn, so that your skills become better. That's what makes the excellence. It's when you have the better attitude to develop your skills. All right. Another point that I want to share with you before we get into some principles on design is that your design reflects your maker. Your design reflects your maker. In Ephesians 2, 2:10, God reminds us that being made in His image, we give Him all the glory. Everything that we do, whether what our hand touches, it gives glory to God. If God created you in His image, we have the ability to create. Maybe not create like God, but we have a mind that can be creative in making designs, painting, music, video. All of that reflects of Jesus. And when we put effort, if you're that type of person that puts effort in your worship, or effort in your worship service, you should put effort in your design, because how you design reflects your maker. It gives Him more glory when we try to learn or try to practice to become better at how we design. One more quote before we go on. This is something that, as a designer, gives me the inspiration to try to create more, to design better every time that I have the opportunity to create something. And, creativity is not a mood. Creativity is not a gift. It is the very nature of God in you. Everything that we do, our Christianity, our Adventism, that reflects the true nature of Jesus Christ. That includes how you work every day, how you play, how you wash the dishes. That all, comes back to the nature of God in you. And when our design reflects that, our design in words, the words that we put there, how we write our articles, how we write our scripts, that always has to be reflective of who Jesus Christ is. Because if it's not, then it's poor design. It's not a great design. It's a poor design. And that's where the problems begin. People may not be interested. You may have turned off people from coming and viewing your content because maybe at the end of the day, your design was all about you and it wasn't about Jesus. Our branding and our design should always portray who Jesus Christ is. So I have a little test that I want to do with you guys. I know there's just a few people here with us on Zoom. I will ask you to do this on your own. There's no grade here, but I think it's an opportunity for you to have a mindset of the difference and the importance of focusing on your brand. Okay, so I have here 3 items. Hopefully you can see it clearly. The first one there that you see, if I can get my notes here, yeah. The first one that's there is the heart, and I put their brand. So what's a brand? So brand is basically what people perceive emotionally as a corporate image or as a whole. So how people feel when they see a logo or they see colors, it puts an emotion in their heart. Maybe for some people who think for a moment, what's your favorite donut shop? Think of the colors of that. Is it orange? Is that donut shop orange? Is that donut shop pink? Think about that. So every time you see those colors, you'll associate it with that donut shop. If it's Jayco or Dunkin' Donuts. How about the colors red? Maybe for some people, when they see red, they might think of Pizza Hut. If somebody sees green, they might think Starbucks. So these brands, whenever we see a brand, it affects our emotions, and that's what they want to do with it. The identity, however, is different. Identity is the visual aspects that form part of the overall brand. So the identity could be many things, right? Say, for example, Nike. They have a logo that's a check, and they also have the word Nike. So they have identities there. At the same time, Nike pays athletes to be there, like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, he would be an identity. So when I see Michael Jordan, what comes to your mind? Nike, right? Or it could even be the other way around because Michael Jordan is so famous. When you think of Nike shoes, for some people, the first thing that comes in their mind is basketball. And if it's basketball, it might be Michael Jordan. The third one is the logo. These are some of the elements of brand making. And the identity of a brand in its simplest form via a mark or a logo. And so again, that could be a check from Nike, or with Adidas, the 3 lines, or the flower. There's different forms of logos out there. And we have to be able to identify them. So here's my quiz for you right now. Here's my quiz, okay? So I'm gonna ask a simple question, and then you try to guess which one would it be? Which of these 3 elements would it be as an answer? So we'll try the first one, okay? So let's say, for example, Sabbath keeping. Sabbath keeping. Is that a brand? Is that the brand of the Adventist Church? Is it an identity of the Adventist Church? Or is it one of our logos of the Adventist Church? So Da-da-da-da-da-da-dun. I'm pretty sure you have made your decision already. And for some of you, you may have already chosen identity, and that is correct. The Sabbath keeping is an identity of our church. It's one of the reasons why it's in the name, but it's not our brand. Our brand is not Sabbath worship. But the thing is, many people brand us as Sabbath keepers, but that's not our brand. It's just our identity. When I was growing up here in the Philippines, we would take like the tuk-tuk, or we call it a tricycle here, the motorbike, to go to church. And so on Sabbath morning, I would walk outside, wait for the tuk-tuk to come, and I didn't have to tell the driver where I was going on Sabbath morning. Because number one, it was Sabbath. Number two, he saw that I was dressed. And so he identified me as a Sabbath keeper and would drive me directly to the church without me telling him where I needed to go. But often we're branded as other things, maybe by the food that we eat or the food that we don't eat. We're branded by that. And so here in the Philippines, if you go places and you introduce yourself as an Adventist, the first thing they will say, oh, it's the people who don't eat pork or don't eat seafood. It's the people who cannot go to school or cannot work on the Sabbath. That's how we are branded as. And I'll make a point later, that's not how we should be branded, because we've been giving the wrong identity, the wrong brand throughout the years. So maybe what you have been producing, and before you existed, before you were born, and while you were still young, our church has been pushing our brand as being something else. But I want to point on that later. Okay, let's do another test with you guys. This one, this should be a familiar thing. What do you guys think this is? Is it a brand? Is it an identity? Or is it a logo? So 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what is it? Oops, I just lost my, there you go. It's a logo, of course. It's a mark. It's an icon. This logo is very important, and we have to take care of it because that's what identifies us. That's why we have rules within design that we don't like to edit logos. We have a rule in the Adventist church that's by law. You can't change the Adventist logo. That's what we have. That's in our bylaws, that we can't change that, because that's what identifies our brand, is that logo. And so people, they like to change this. They like to distort it or mix it with other logos on top, and we try to discourage that, because that's what's identifying us. And by putting a whole bunch of logos to it, destroys the importance of this logo. Okay, let's try another one. This one. Sharing the good news of Christ's return in the most loving attitude to everyone, everywhere. What is this? Is this a brand? Is this an identity? Or is this a logo? Okay. Sharing the good news of Christ's return in the most loving attitude to everyone, everywhere. It's our brand. What if people started noticing us, or started saying, oh, those are the Adventist people. Those are the people who love to talk to other people, and they're so forgiving, they're so peaceful, they're so loving. I really enjoy speaking to Adventists. What if that's how we were identified? Wouldn't that be a game changer? Let's try another one. Adventist. Is this a brand? Is it an identity? Or is it a logo? Okay, let's see what it is. It's a logo. The word Adventist is a logo. We can use it in a sentence. We can use it as a banner to identify who we are. That's a mark, the Adventist. So you'll see that after the word Adventist, we usually have a TR on it, a trademark on it, or an R for original. Because we use that as our logo. Okay, some people might think it's our identity. No, It can't be an identity, because an identity, if you remember, is just part of the overall brand. It's just part of the overall brand. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. Make your notes, ask your questions later, okay, guys? And I hope that this is sort of sinking in of how this works, okay? Let's try another one. Voice of prophecy. Is it a brand, identity, or logo? Okay, 3, 2, 1. It's an identity. It's one of our identities. It's one of our fundamental beliefs. That's why it's an identity. So the voice of prophecy, it's not the first thing that defines us all. No, it's only part of who we are. It's only part. Okay? Here we go. Love one another. Is this a brand, an identity, or a logo? What do you think this is? A brand, identity, or a logo? Ready for it? It's a brand. We're called by Jesus Christ to even love our enemies. That's not an identifier. That's how we need to be branded as. Okay, that's how we need to be branded as. And I'll show you here. There was a problem. The disciples had a big problem. They got angry when you go through these stories here in John chapter 13 and 14. You'll see they had a problem. And the problem was that they got angry. They said, Jesus, we see people cast people in your name, but they're not part of our club. They're not one of the disciples. They're not wearing our uniform. What did Jesus say about this? What was Jesus's comment? He said, well, if you love one another, the whole world will know that you are my disciples. You see, guys, when we have that brand that Jesus was trying to share about, it wasn't about a t-shirt, it wasn't about how many honors you have in your sash, how nicely your uniform looks. That is not who we are. That could be an identifier. Being a Pathfinder could be an identifier, of the Adventist Church. It could be a logo. The Pathfinder logo can be a logo that is associated with the Adventist Church, but that's not who we are. Jesus was saying that if you love one another, the whole world will know that you are my disciples. And we have to remember that. That's what Jesus wants the world to know, to be known as, right? Love is our brand. That's our brand. As Christians, as followers of Jesus Christ, that's our brand, love. Our identity is Jesus. We have to look at Jesus' life and all the things that he practiced, all the things that he did. That's what we identify with. How he loved others, how he forgave, how he went out of his way to help other people. That should be part of our identity. And the logo, you know what the logo is? It's you. You are the logo of our church. You are the logo of Christianity. You are the logo of Jesus Christ. Because when people see you, they need to see who Jesus Christ is. So I hope that made sense to you guys as we go on. So I want to talk about now some touch points here that is important to brand making. Okay? Here are some touch points, and I call them touch points. You can research this. Many marketing strategists use this because it's important of how we touch people's lives. Technically, how does your brand, how does some of your identities, how does your logo interact with people? It's okay to, we can have this on paper. We can talk about this all night, but how does it reach the people? And so this is quite small. I'm sorry. Can I go a little bit bigger on this? Maybe there. Yeah. I guess I have to voice it out what it is. But basically, we have all these touch points, whether it's youth ministry, whether it's your Pathfinder Club or the news network. We have to understand where we're going to put all this information. There's the web, there's video, there's print, there's mobile, there's social media, there's email, and even one-on-one, how we talk to other people. So when you're creating your content, we have to make sure that it's okay to put on all these platforms, all these touch points. Can the content that you're making, can Can it be used if I went to my friend and say, hey, look at this, are you interested in coming, and show them the graphic and share with them the information? Would it work like that? Can it work that way? Can it be sent through email? So you have to understand these touch points and study each of the touch points, because maybe in your part of the world, WhatsApp is what you need to use. In some other parts of the world, it needs to be Facebook. It could be Instagram. So you have to see what are your touch points for you to effectively reach your target. And so we can talk about branding. Yeah, we can talk about design, but branding and design always talks about how it gets placed on each of the platforms. Because when you design something for Facebook, maybe the design is different for Instagram. The wordings can be different for Instagram. Maybe the way that you send it on WhatsApp is different than how you would share it on the Facebook Messenger. So you have to keep note on that. So as you're creating your branding, whether it's your club or your news network, you have to think about that. How are we getting this news out? And will that affect how we design things? Will it affect how we design things? Okay, so I spent a few seconds there on reminding you that you will need to create designs specifically for each of your platforms. Now, one other thing that is worse for designing anything is, having a poor design. We talked about that earlier. So I came up with some bullets here to kind of share what kills design. What will make your design really, really, really bad? One, we need to develop a workflow. Wait, is this right? One moment here. I think I skipped a slide. Yeah, there you go. We're on the right slide. Yeah. So if we don't have these, maybe I skipped one slide. Yeah, I did skip a slide. I'm sorry. I think I forgot to put the slide in there. But as I was saying earlier, we have to be careful how we design. And what kills design, if you're taking note, is an unclear message. Sometimes we want to design something just because it's midweek, or just because it's Friday night and it's Sabbath. We need to have a clear message of what's there. Simplicity and clear message is key. If you have that, it won't kill your design. Another thing that kills design is noisy elements. Having so many colors everywhere that, and maybe for some people it's like 10 different pictures. Like you're going to have all the pictures of the youth directors there, or all the pictures of your AY leaders. I think those are important people, but is it important to the person who's looking at your graphic? You have to keep that in mind. Is it important to the people who are looking at it? So it can become very noisy, or big fonts. You know what I mean? Like big, huge fonts, or these weird looking fonts, or little fonts, and it doesn't really fit. And that's what kills design. Third one is too much content. I think I touched on that earlier. Too much content. We really want people, when they see your video or your graphic or your news report, it's simple. Within a few seconds, they can identify what you want to say. They can identify what the message is all about, just in just a few seconds. And it doesn't take them too long. So less content. Straight to the point content. Another thing that kills design is zero consistency. This has been a challenge for me as well, because I work with different people, and I had to create my own workflow so that the people I work with will follow my rules when it comes to design, because I want consistency with the design. One of the things that I'm working on is the branding for SSD, for our division headquarters, and we're coming up with a new design that will unify everything that we produce here. The fonts, the colors, the size of the logo, all those things are important, and we have to have consistency. But if your design is different every week, your design is different for each program, the colors are not the same, or they're not consistent, is what I'm trying to say. The colors are not consistent. The type of font is not consistent. That kills design. And it doesn't give a good brand. Yeah, so like I said, I had to develop a workflow, and I would encourage you to do the same. Develop your own workflow. Number one, before you design anything, you want to be a designer right now, you want to help bake a brand, do your research. Understand what your logo looks like, or understand the history of your logo, or understand the history of the ministry that you're helping right now. Find out as much of information as you can. You know, I work with some people who, I mean, not work, but they ask for some advice. And often it's about logos. And the biggest dilemma that I see in people who make logos is the biggest dilemma is that they want to design a logo for themselves. So if you were thinking of whatever ministry, come up with a name, they want to create a logo that fits for them. The thing is, though, the logo is supposed to identify who you are. And so you need to develop something that's based on your mission and vision, so it makes sense. And to do that, you need to do your research. Or you might make a design that looks like a different logo. You know, somebody, I don't want to say in which union, but somebody asked help for a design a couple days ago. And all I'm going to say is that the name of their ministry started with the letter B. And when I saw their logo, I asked them, where did they get the idea for their logo? And they said, no, we just came up with it. But if you saw the logo, the letter B, if you're familiar with the brand Beats, the headphones Beats, it looked just like the Beats logo. Just a different color and kind of slanted a little bit. So I asked them, did you do research? Did you find other logos that look just like this logo? They said no. So I said, you're not familiar with Beats? So we have to do our research there. Create a workflow in which you have time to research about what you need to accomplish. Going back to research, maybe you need to get information. You need to get people's pictures. You have to collect all your information during research, okay? Second is doing style sheets. I don't have an example of style sheets right now. I should have got that ready. But style sheets for me is basically coming up with different ideas, such from Pinterest or maybe from Google. You come up with different ideas of different projects or different churches' graphics, so you have an idea of what you want to design. So you have an idea to look at, not to copy, but inspiration. So a moods board or a stylescape basically is trying to make a sample of what you want to make, so you're inspired with that font or with that colors, things like that. Make a style sheet out of that. Develop concepts. And developing concepts, it cannot be done overnight. That's why it's a very frustrating for me, or even for you, if you say, my elder came, or my youth leader came, or my pastor came. Say, I need a design for tomorrow. I need you to lay this out. It's very frustrating because you don't have time to develop any ideas. And so you need to come up with protocols on your own to say, okay, before I can do something for my church or for my AY, I need to have that 5 days before. I need to have your request 5 days before. So that it gives me time to research, to create my style board, and to develop a couple concepts. You might have to use a pen and paper, or if you use Illustrator, you go and make a couple designs as a sample. And you don't show that to anybody else. That's just for you. So you can see what works, what doesn't work, and what's missing, okay? The fourth one is feedback. You see there in parentheses, I said, from the right people. Okay. Often there are people who ask you to make a design, but they have no skill, no background in design or branding. And it gets frustrating when you ask them for advice for your design, is because they will add things not based on design principles, but based on their preference. And we get in trouble with that. It's best to find your friends who are also designers or who like to make graphics or videos and ask them for inputs about it. Because that way, you know your friend is being honest with you and gives you the best advice. Okay? And last, fifth, in your workflow, finalize your concept. Finalize it. You make sure that you have all your spelling right, you have everything, all the information right, and then you submit it. That way, if they have a comment, oh, why is it this color? You can say, no, I did a couple tests. This is the best color for your concept. Yeah. See, so if you have this workflow, it becomes easier for you. So brand designs such as these take time. I can get my mouse in the right place. There you go. Let's see here. This takes time. This is not done overnight. This is 3 or 4 people working together to make something that looks like this. Everything's uniform, it's simplified, easy to read. I mean, if you zoomed in, meaning the information is laid out in a nice way. Here's other things that that me and my friends have worked on in the past. Design needs to bring out specific information. And so you have to design with that. And you need to be consistent with it. So here's one form of consistency. The overall, maybe a design for Instagram and a design for the banner. Colors are the same. Some of the graphics are the same. And the logo is consistent. Okay? And as you notice in these type of layouts, I don't put the Adventist logo or even the AY logo. Why? Because we already know that Pathfinders is part of youth ministry. You don't need to double up all of your logos to prove it. People should know that. And that's how you create a brand. Here's some other designs. Simplicity, straight to the point. And I'll talk about the principles behind these in just a few minutes. Design can be in simplistic form. It could be abstract to give meaning, to draw in attention. Say, hey, wait, what's that hand doing? And so people want to stop for a moment and figure out what that's all about. Okay, logos. See, there is a system to it. If you have your developing phase, brainstorming phase, you can come up with different ideas until you come with your final thought. So you see that this logo here at the top went through a whole bunch of other ideas before it finalized on this concept here. So it's not done overnight, guys. It's not done overnight. Okay. Yeah, so here's one of the histories of 1 year in mission that we've done. So you see here that it goes through a timeline, right? So when we first had 1 year in mission, it's like this. Somebody else came in like this. We worked on the logo to make it much more simplified, to make more sense about each of the elements of the logo, until we come up with something that can look similar to the AY logo. So you can put this logo next to the Pathfinder logo, next to the SYL logo. It all fits together. If you went just with this logo, it doesn't work with the AY logo. It doesn't match its branding with the AY logo. So you have to. It takes time, but I'm just pointing out, how that works. And so here's one of the other logos that we're working on lately, in helping to redesign the 1 year in mission logo to give more sense to people who see the 1 year in mission. And you can see here that the emphasis is on mission, not on one. If you notice here, one is the emphasis there, but if you look at the bottom where the branding and the vision and the mission, the identity and the logo all refer into its what it's supposed to mean, right? And 1 year in mission is about mission, and so we need to emphasize that word. I hope I'm making sense. So here we go. I'm almost done, guys. Here are the 7 principles that I want to leave with you. Aside from everything that I talked about, I want you to remember these things. Okay. So when you design, think of contrast. One, there's no order to this, but I'm just saying number one, I like to work with contrast first. Before I start, I kind of look at all the research I did and say, what's contrasting here? Immediately, I start choosing the colors that I want. And I will choose 2 different colors that will contrast each other to start with, of course, but it will change as I go on. The second is proportion. Look at your design, look at your words, look at the size of the pictures that you're putting there. Things need to be in proportion. Maybe your picture is very big, but then your font is like really small or like really squished together. Proportion is very important. Or if you're doing video, if you're doing graphics for different sizes, make sure it fits correctly in those boxes. I mean, you don't put a square photo, say in the banner of Facebook. You'll want to have that as a rectangle, and you'll want to know what the dimensions are for that. Hierarchy is important because often we want to identify what's most important. And as you saw as a sample in the logo, in the logo for 1 Year Mission, the emphasis was always on one, on the word one. But what we did is, because of hierarchy, we want them to understand that the last word is the most important. Mission. So we have to build hierarchy. Hierarchy doesn't mean in sequence. It just means you have to build up that order. So when the eye sees it, when the people who are watching sees it, they can identify what's most important about your design. It might be the name of your ministry. It might be the name of your event. But in some places, I see people use the name of the speaker as the biggest thing there, or even the picture of the speaker as the biggest element, the hierarchy. And we have to double think that. Are we there for the person, or are we there because we're calling in for community for your project or for your ministry? And so there has to be a balance there. Emphasis. Emphasis is also important when it comes to information. Hierarchy is there, but there's also emphasis. What are you emphasizing there? Make sure that it's bold, it's big, or it's thin and short for people, so people can understand what are you trying to say. Maybe on one side, you're trying to say what your project is doing. On the other side, you're emphasizing that you need to go to Zoom to get this information. So you have to emphasize on your design what's important there. Okay? And pattern. Pattern can be done in different ways. I'm not referring just to pattern design, but the way that you become consistent with the other designs. As you saw for the one camporee that we did, we had a pattern, the pattern of the background. And every design, we would put that background image, and that would be the pattern. We can move any other graphics around, but the pattern will always be there. So it's sort of like consistency. We want a pattern when we design. Balance. What I like to do with balance is when I'm designing something that is with a lot of information, that is, I want to make sure that it's balanced, that one side is not heavier than the other side. So one way of imagining that is if you were to literally balance your picture, which way would it fall? Which is the heavier side? And one way of doing that is to balance it, to make sure that both sides are balanced in a way in terms of graphics, in terms of font size, as you see here. You see that one side has big, huge, bold word balance, but then on the other side I have one that's stretched out. So you can kind of say, yeah, this image is sort of balanced in my mind. It's not weighing on one side, it won't fall over. So balance is an element that you need to keep in mind. I think it's the last one. White space. White space. For me, white space is important because having nothing there can mean something. If you have the right information, you have the right details there, you don't have to put other information to make it look very busy or very noisy. Maybe that's the information you want to give. An example that I can give you is maybe on your designs or in your videos or whatever you're making, don't put everything on one video or one image. Make several videos, make several images to share your story. Instead of having everybody in one picture, why not make a graphic for each of the speakers? You see where I'm going with it? So that there's more space for people to see, and then focus on what you're emphasizing, and focus on maybe the hierarchy of information. Maybe it's the date, maybe it's the information of the website or information where you need to register. We need to give space, and to do that, white space is your friend. White space is your friend. Okay, I think I'm almost done here, guys. Here are some of the challenges that you will face, and we've all gone through these. One of them will be working with limited time. How many times have I been through that? And I think some of you have as well. So those are the challenge. So you have to come up with rules of how you manage your time, so that the people who ask for, if it's a favor or if it's a business, if you have to make sure you have enough time to accommodate that design, because you have a workflow. Remember, you have a workflow. Balancing thinking with doing. So it's great to sit down and come up with a concept, but then you're going to have to put time to do it. I was taught that when you do a video, for each second of the video, so if your video is 30 seconds long, each second is an hour. You have to accumulate 1 hour for each second. That's how you create a video. So if it's 30 seconds, you should have at least 30 hours to think about that video, to work and think about that video. So just imagine people who have to make a 5-minute video and they have to do it in 3 days. It can be very hard, especially if there's no research and everything needs to be done immediately. The third one is staying relevant. When you design something or create a video, you have to make sure that the tools you're using, the processes that you're using or the elements you're using, such as logos or fonts, the wordings, it has to be relevant. So, I saw a design a couple days ago where they're talking about, information about today, about today's technology. But the picture that they used on it was an iPhone from 2003. So it doesn't send a message that you want to talk about technology in 2021, because you're using a picture from 2003. So staying relevant. Staying true to design fundamentals. As I just shared earlier, a few seconds ago, about, from the balancing of it, the hierarchy, the emphasis, the white space, staying true to those fundamentals is very hard to do. It's very hard to do that because you have people asking you to design a certain way, and that's how it goes against some of these principles. And I've been there. I've had people who I worked for before in the past where they said, "Oh, Tony, it has to be like this." But the thing is, I would remind them that it can't only be like that, because there's other principles that we need to apply to the design, so it becomes meaningful for people who look at it, because it's been tested. This is what designers use, and so think about using those things. The last one there is designed for the right people. In our church, I'll talk about myself. I've gone through the experience of being used and abused. Although we can call it ministry, but it's different when they ask you to design something or to make a video or edit some audio, and then they come back with an email or a call with, "Hey, can you change this, change that, edit this and edit this?" It's very frustrating. And so for some of you who are really interested in design, you need to start designing for the right people. That's what I can say. Design for the right people. All right, last, we need to learn to kiss it. Do you know what this means? Do you know what kiss means? Keep it super simple. Whenever you're designing anything and you're researching, you're making your samples, you're coming up with your ideas and you're finalizing it, always think, how can I make this more simple? Keep it super simple. That way, people will identify you as a good brand because your message is clear. Your vision that you have for your ministry is clear. They see it in the text. They see it in the graphics that you have there because you're keeping it very simple. And so the last advice that I would give is go, create, and kiss. Keep it super simple. Thank you guys for listening.
Ya, diucapkan terima kasih buat Brother Tony. Thank you so much. Juga Pastor Ryan Sarinsong yang sudah boleh mentranslate. Ya, untuk kakak-kakak semua yang mempunyai pertanyaan, kembali diingatkan untuk menuliskannya dalam kolom chat. Dan tadi sudah ada beberapa pertanyaan. Ya, oke, mungkin untuk tanya jawab bisa dipandu oleh Pastor Rian, ya. Ya di kolom chat sudah ada 2 pertanyaan, Pastor. Silakan. Ini dari Hastangka.
Mungkin Pastor masih sistem interpreter, bisa bantu Kak Casey?
Okay, so there's some questions. The first one is how we make a creative branding. So what step to make the branding seems creative? Brother Tony, can
Halo,
you
Pastor Rian.
understand me?
Okay, so how to make the branding creative? Okay.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, in the workflow, we need to have some form of. Let me see if I can get back my PowerPoint here to the right one, just to go through that workflow. Because for me, to be creative, anybody can be creative. And what I mean by that is that everyone has their own style, okay? Everyone has their own preference to what beauty can mean. And so it's challenging for like someone like me. If you gave me a design to critic, of course I will critic it by saying, it should be like this, it should be like that. But what I really do is I try to think first, what is that person thinking? So, as I said earlier, in one of my quotes is, design designing is the visual thinking. Okay, design is so. If you want to be creative, you need to start looking at creative things. You need to start finding things that inspire you. You need to start experimenting and practicing with different colors, different fonts. Research on different types of fonts. Research on which fonts what do you call this? Fonts that are relevant today. What's the most common font? What fonts are being used for YouTube? What's the best font for Facebook video? What's the best fonts for ads? You need to do a lot of research. That's why I have here in the workflow is research. If you want to have a process to be very creative, you have to have a workflow first. Because if you don't have a workflow, you don't know where to start. You don't know where to start. And so it first starts in your mind. You get inspiration, you start researching, and then you start creating. I don't know if that made sense.
Okay, the next questions. So what application that is suitable for graphic design, especially when we use cell phones or maybe laptops for beginners? So what application that is suitable for design the graphic?
Okay, that's a good question. There's a lot of free apps out there in terms of design. Personally, myself, when I'm busy, I have templates, and the templates are not Photoshop. They're not Word. They're actually Google Slides. I use Google Slides for some of my Instagram posts because I have a template there. I ask some of the people who help me. I give them access to the Google Slide, and they just edit the words or change the picture. So it might not sound that sophisticated, but using Google Slides is a great way to, if you have templates already made by your designer, you can have people already create the content. And all they need is a phone and access to Google Slides. Another one would be Canva. Canva is very popular. It's free to an extent, but there's a lot of things. The thing I would say about Canva is try to make your own branding in Canva. Don't use the template there and not change anything about it. You have to first develop the branding for your ministry or whatever organization you're creating. You have to create the branding, the colors, the fonts, the location of where the logos go, what's the size of the logos. Because once you do that, then you can apply that to any application, whether it's Photoshop, if you're using a PC, or GIMP. GIMP is free. There's a lot of tutorials on GIMP. I also use GIMP, but I'm just saying I use GIMP once in a while, but I grew up using Photoshop. So I always go and use Photoshop. But if I'm on a machine that's not original, I mean like it's maybe Linux, or I don't have access to the original Photoshop, I will use GIMP for quick edits. But again, using mobile phone or tablet, apps such as Google Slides, Zoho is another app that I like to use, Zoho Show. It's easy to make graphics there. And Canva, if you want to become more graphical, I mean more what do you call this? More freedom in designing. Another one is, if I can, is it Pixlr? One moment, yeah. I think it's called, yeah, there you go. Pixlr. So it's Pix. Let me see if I can type it here, guys, in the chat. One moment. Where's the chat? Okay. Pixlr.com. There you go. Excuse me. That's also free application to use. I don't have it in my mind right now, but Pixlr has another app. You have to search for it. That's almost like Photoshop and GIMP, but it uses the web browser. It just uses the web browser. So if you're on a slow machine, like maybe you have an older laptop or a computer that's not that high powered, you can use the web-based photo editor. Let's see if I can find a web photo editor. I just can't remember the name, but once I see the name, I can't see the name. So my bad. I wasn't. Wait, maybe it's right here. Maybe it's right here. This is it here. One moment, guys. Wait lang, wait lang. I have to make sure this is the right one that I'm thinking about. Yes, if you're editing photos and text only, you can use this editor here. There you go. Polar. Polar is the other application that I would recommend. It's free. And I think you can use it on your tablet. I don't know if you can use it on your phone. I mean, if it works well with a phone. But if you don't have a fast computer, these are options that you can use.
Okay, the next questions. Yeah. Are there any specific restrictions on branding and design specifically for Christians? Is there any specific restriction on branding, especially as a Christians?
I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that I don't know the limit of restrictions. Good branding follows a kit or a design kit. Whether you're Christian or not Christian, is what I'm trying to say. And as a church, we have brand kits that are available. If you go to Adventist Identity or identity.adventist.org, if I'm not mistaken, because somebody double check that for me and paste it there in the chat. But we have kits to allow ourselves to have similar branding, text, colors. We have something there called the 7 grid or the creation grid. Those are factors that bring us an alignment or puts us on the same direction when we're creating branding. You know what I mean? It gives us some type of foundation. But in terms of, are there things that we shouldn't do? Well, of course, like I was saying earlier, we have to make sure that all of our branding always shows that we're a loving people, that we're people that are loving to everyone, whether or not we disagree with their political views or we don't agree with their sexual orientation, or we don't agree with their skin color. All these things, that's the things that need to go out the door. And when we create things, whether it's a website or an image with quotes on it, those quotes, if it's a video or wherever you post it, need to reflect that Jesus is our Savior, that Jesus brings hope, that Jesus is coming soon. What happens is the restrictions that I would say is stay away from things that don't define who we are as Christians. Don't design things that interpret 666. Don't design things that paint a picture that we're all about. We're all about the end of the world. We're all about the dragon in Revelation. We're all about the beast in Revelation. Those are the things that we don't want to design because that doesn't paint our picture. That doesn't show who we are. That doesn't show a loving people who are called by God right now to tell the world about His love. Right? Those are truths. Those are truths. But those are the truths that are meant for people who have opportunities to go through Bible study and to learn more. It's not information that you should be posting in public because they're going to identify your church as something that talks about the mark of the beast. Is that what you want to be known about? Do you want your ministry to be known as the group that just talks about the beast and 666 and things like that? Or condemns people because of what they wear, or condemns people because they prefer to wear jewelry, or because they're not vegetarian. I hope you get my point. What we want, the criteria is there for limitation is not about not doing things, but doing all the things that promote Jesus Christ. We want to create things that promote Jesus Christ, not ourselves, not bring glory to your own church or bringing glory to your Pathfinder club. No, whatever we create should always bring glory back to God. Does that make sense?
Okay, next questions. How to put multiple logos in one content for
All right.
pamphlet, poster, or video?
Yeah. Well, in practice, guys, you don't really put more than 3 logos on a design, honestly speaking. There are cases where they might put multiple logos, but it's there because of the emphasis. Okay? If you look at the GC, I see the GC Youth Ministries sometimes put all of the ministry logos together. But there is context to that. There's context. It's because the department, you have to understand, guys, they're promoting the department's initiative, not the ministries. Am I making sense here? They're promoting a department. The department has a function, which is why they show those ministries at the bottom. Okay? But if you're doing, like, you're promoting a church program, something like that, and you put 15 different logos there, what does it mean? What are you trying to say? And so it doesn't give a clear message, especially to someone who doesn't know, say, for example, what's the VOY logo? That doesn't make sense to me. Or what's this AYNN logo? It doesn't make sense to them. You may want to isolate those logos to make that the dominant logo, and then maybe somewhere on the page, put there the AY logo. An additional thing is you may not want to mix your logos together because it's redundant. Say, for example, putting the AY logo and the Adventist Church logo together. In some cases it works, but often it doesn't work because AY is Adventist. Does that make sense? AY is Adventist. So you wouldn't really need to put the Adventist logo there. You may need to put it there if you use the 7 grid. Like I was saying earlier, the Adventist branding kit, they have a 7 grid there, and on the 7th grid, on the 7th line, you put the Adventist logo there. In that scenario, you can mix the AY logo and the Adventist logo because, one, we're following the 7 grid. And the 7th grid isolates the Adventist logo. It isolates it. Meaning whatever's inside of the rest of the design, you can have the AY logo. You can have the Master Guide logo there. So they can be dominant there. As you notice in my Pathfinder design, I don't put the AY logo because it's given to me and to everyone within the ministry that's AY. So I wouldn't need to put the AY logo to be redundant because I want to emphasize Pathfinders. Why do I emphasize Pathfinders? Because I'm focusing on a people group. On an age group, sorry. I'm focusing on an age bracket. That's why I don't incorporate the AY logo. Because the AY logo goes from 13 all the way to 35 years old. Make sense here, guys? Is it making sense? So I would use the appropriate logo for the audience that you're trying to reach. If you're trying to point out Master Guide, only use Master Guide. SYL only. Ambassador Club is there. Right? Because by default, we need to know, and other people need to know, that by itself, it exists. It exists by itself. You may notice the I Will Go logo. Well, the I will go logo is just temporary. It's just there for an initiative. It's only there for the next 5 years or for only 5 years. It's why the Adventist logo and the I will go logo appear together, because it's emphasized the Adventist church uses the I will go as our initiative for the next 5 years. And so it could be that instead of using the Adventist logo, you put the AY logo and the I will go logo together. Am I making sense here? So be practical in how we use logos. There is no, well, like I said, don't use 15 different logos because it just doesn't make sense. What you're putting on your design, on your video screen, or whatever you're making, you're trying to simplify things, right? One other thing is, if you have multiple logos, say for example, you need to put multiple logos, be consistent with it. Be consistent, okay? I don't want to embarrass anyone. I'm just going to use it as an example only example. I'm not here to embarrass. But you see your background logo. You have your Adventist logo, your AY logo, and your I will go logo. I have nothing wrong with that. The only tip I would say is make it mono. I see the Adventist logo is mono white. I see the I will go is mono white. Make your AY logo mono white as well. So make them similar. If you have to put them together, because I'm assuming that's the message you're trying to put out there. I'm Adventist. We are the AY of East Indonesia, and we're doing our I will go. This is part of our I will go initiative. It makes sense to me. Just maybe think about how to make them look similar, right? So no embarrassment to anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm just pointing that out as a strategy of how you can put multiple logos together. Hope that makes sense. Did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you, brother.
I see people going like this. So, okay. Terima kasih. Terima kasih.
Very much. So we're going to end it, our Q&A, and back to MC.
Thank you so much, Brother Tony and Brother Ryan. Especially for Brother Tony for the amazing presentation and amazing discussion. Oke, sekali lagi kami mengucapkan terima kasih banyak, dan untuk kakak-kakak semuanya, setelah doa tutup nanti kita akan foto bersama, jadi dimohonkan jangan dulu keluar atau leave dari Zoom ini. For Brother Tony, after pray, we have two photo. So please stay with us. Dan untuk doa tutup, untuk menutup rangkaian kegiatan kita pada malam hari ini, diminta kesediaan dari Brother Pastor Ryan, sekaligus mendoakan Brother Tony dalam pelayanan dan juga aktivitasnya. Dipersilahkan.
Okay, mari kita. So now we're going to close our events by prayer. Mari kita berdoa. Terima kasih karena kesempatan yang baik kami boleh melihat dan menyimak pelajaran yang sangat berharga dalam webinar saat ini mengenai merek dan juga desain yang kami akan bisa buat dalam pelayanan untuk kepemudaan khususnya yang ada di Uniconference Indonesia Kawasan Timur melalui proyek pelayanan Adventist Youth News Network. Ya, Tuhan berkati apa yang sudah kami dengarkan, khususnya pembicara Brother Tony Stanyer akan terus diberkati dalam tugas tanggung jawabnya, khusus membantu di tahun ini untuk Divisi Asia Pasifik Selatan, Departemen Pelayanan Pemuda Advent yang ada, kiranya terus diberikan kekuatan, hikmat, bijaksana sorga, dan terus menginspirasi kami semua dalam pelayanan kepemudaan yang ada, dalam mendesain dan juga merancang hal yang baik untuk pelayanan. Tentunya kiranya kuasa sorga memampukan kami semua, berpisah dari tempat ini, kami boleh menghidupkan dan mengimplementasi apa yang sudah kami dengarkan. Dan kami akan terus berlatih menggunakan waktu yang ada untuk semakin berkembang di dalam melaksanakan desain yang bisa kami buat. Bapa di sorga, kiranya Tuhan memberkati semua partisipan yang ada, dan semua tim dari Adventist Youth News Network akan terus diberikan kelancaran dalam event-event selanjutnya. Bersama dengan kami mengakhiri webinar saat ini, dalam nama Tuhan Yesus kami berdoa dan mengucap syukur senantiasa. Amin.
Terima kasih Pendeta Ryan. Dan sebelum kita foto bersama, ada satu hal yang terlupakan, yaitu sertifikat, penyerahan sertifikat secara simbolis bagi narasumber kita yang akan dipandu oleh Kak Wina Hidupan.
Good evening, everyone. Praise the Lord. Only by His grace, our program this evening just ran well. Thank you to all the attendees, and especially to our speaker, our brother Kuya Anthony Stanyer. Thank you. Thank you very much, who have just dedicated his time to serve us, the young people, the youth from Manado, Indonesia, especially from East Indonesia Union Conference. And to appreciate your service, we would like to give you a certificate. Please share screen. Okay, thank you. East Indonesia Union Conference, Adventist Youth News Network proudly present this certificate of appreciation to Anthony Stanyer for sharing his expertise on branding and design during the East Indonesia Union Conference Adventist Youth News Network webinar series on June 15, 2021. Present with grateful appreciation during the Zoom webinar signed by Pastor Junaidi Muntu as East Indonesia Union Conference Youth Director. And once again, thank you very much, Brother Anthony. May you keep on serving the Lord through the youth ministry, and we hope someday you can come again and visit us here in Manado, Indonesia. And may the Lord be with you, and our prayers goes to you, your family, and your service. Once again, thank you very much.
Alright, terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih untuk Kak Wina, juga respon dari Brother Tony. Dan saat ini kita akan foto bersama. Jadi untuk kakak-kakak yang masih off videonya, mari kita aktifkan. Kita akan foto bersama dengan Brother Tony. Ya, ini merupakan suatu kebanggaan untuk kita semua untuk berfoto bersama dengan narasumber kita. Oke, sekali lagi kakak-kakak yang masih belum mengaktifkan video.
Halo
Ya.
guys.
Ya, jika sudah mungkin bisa untuk operator untuk mengambil gambar.
Selamat malam guys, malam.
Selamat malam Kak Yoram, thank you for join. Oke, host silakan.
Boleh dikirim ya, terima kasih banyak.
Kak Roger, silakan.
Silakan Kak
untuk
Roger.
ambil gambar.
Suaranya belum kedengaran Kak Roger. Oke, pada hitungan ketiga ya. Oke, silakan.
Sorry, hitungan 3, 2, 1. Oke, once more, once again, begitulah. Hitungan 3, in 3, and 2, and 1. Okay, thank you very much. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you very much, Brother Anthony. Thank you for joining with us. Good night, everyone.
Oke, terima
Terima
kasih
kasih.
semuanya
Terima
kakak-kakak yang
kasih
sudah boleh
semuanya.
gabung.
Izin
Dan
ya.
diingatkan kembali, hari Kamis nanti kita masih
ya.
ada webinar series. Narasumbernya masih dari SSD, yaitu Brother Edward Rodriguez, selaku Communication Secretary of Southeast Pacific Asia Division. Jadi jangan lupakan, hari Kamis masih dengan jam yang sama, yaitu jam 7. Kita akan ada kembali dalam rangkaian webinar Adventist Youth News Network East Indonesian Union Conference. Selamat malam, Tuhan Yesus memberkati kita semua.
Terima kasih bagi kakak-kakak yang masih
Oke, terima
agak
kasih semuanya.
ya, terima kasih yang masih susah untuk mengakses link. Mungkin bisa dikirim nomor WA-nya Kak Kesi biar mereka dapat mengirimkan nama langsung ke Kak Kesi. Jadi bagi teman-teman yang masih susah untuk dapat mengakses link yang ada, bisa mengirim nomor WA-nya ke Kak Kesi agar supaya dapat dibuat sertifikat. Mungkin Kak Kesi boleh share nomor WA-nya di chat. Ya, jadi bagi kakak-kakak yang sudah chat private, yang masih susah untuk mengakses link, ya bisa silakan itu nomor telepon dari Kak Kesi 089655001368. Jadi kakak-kakak semua yang masih susah, agak sulit untuk masuk di dalam link, absennya dapat mengirim nama, kemudian dapat mengisi pertanyaan yang nanti akan ditanyakan oleh Kak Kesi, nama lengkapnya untuk dibuat sertifikat. Demikian. Terima kasih sekali lagi kakak-kakak semua, luar biasa ya sudah meluangkan waktunya dari jam 7 sampai dengan 24.8. Terima kasih banyak. Jangan lupa kita masih ada kegiatan pada hari Kamis dengan materi juga yang masih berhubungan dengan broadcasting. Kalau yang hari ini kita sudah belajar tentang logo, minggu depan kita akan belajar tentang field report. Oke, seperti itu ya teman-teman. Sekali lagi terima kasih untuk Kak Vina Deborang, jauh-jauh dari Jakarta sudah ikut. Tadi juga ada Kak Kori. Ya, terima kasih juga Kak Yoram Rinaldo. Dan terima kasih untuk semuanya. Ada Kak Jerry Nayawan juga saya lihat di sini. Terima kasih. Terima kasih Angelique. Terima kasih Kak Wandi Irot, Kak Johnal, Kak Jubal yang masih stay. Ya, terima kasih semuanya. Silakan Kak Yoram. Iya. Oke, mungkin kita yang tersisa kita akan evaluasi singkat. Terima kasih juga Pendeta Ryan Saronsong yang luar biasa ya malam hari ini.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Tuhan memberkati.
Ya.
Iya, silakan.
Thank you so much.
Ya, terima kasih Kak.
Ya.
Oke, demikian untuk siaran kita pada malam hari ini dan live streaming kita akan dimatikan. Sekali lagi terima kasih untuk semua kakak-kakak yang telah mengikuti kegiatan ini melalui live streaming Facebook. Kami mengundang kembali pada hari Kamis untuk dapat mengikuti kegiatan lanjutan webinar series untuk Adventist Youth News Network. Sekali lagi terima kasih dan kami akan menutup live streaming Facebook.